Today we have discovered some amazing illusions. And along the way, I'm sure you've also learned how easy it is for our eyes and our minds to play tricks on us. There are many different types of illusions in this world that we live in. In fact, sometimes we are led to believe that something is more important than it actually is. We might even tell ourselves that we would finally really be happy if we could just get that one thing we always wanted, or be friends with those certain people. And we might even achieve those things and get that thing or be friends with those people only to discover it didn't give us the lasting joy we thought it might. It was just an illusion. So in a world full of illusion, is there anything that we can know is true and is real? Today I want to tell you something that you can know is absolutely true and real. And that is that Jesus does love you and He has an awesome plan for your life. In fact, today I want to tell you a story. It's a story of the day that Jesus did something for us, the day that He died upon the cross for us. In fact, today these 3 feathers will help me tell that story. You see, none of us are perfect. We've all said things we shouldn't say. We've all done things we shouldn't do. Those kind of things we are told are called sin. But Jesus never sinned. He faced temptation, but He never gave in. Jesus alone was perfect, and today, this feather right here in the middle, the red one, will help us think of Jesus, the only perfect person who ever lived. Now, in the Bible, it tells us that our sin is like scarlet. That's kind of a red color. But you might be thinking, well, wait a minute, David, if Jesus was perfect, if Jesus never sinned, then why would a color that helps us think of sin help us think of Jesus? The amazing thing is that when Jesus went to the cross that day, He was not there because He did anything wrong, but He took all of our sin upon Himself. He was there to pay the price for our sin. You see, Jesus died upon that cross, but He didn't stay dead. He rose from the grave. And because of that, though our sin was like scarlet, we can be washed as white as snow. Now, the day that Jesus died on the cross, there were actually 2 other people that we are told are called thieves. Now, these guys were not like Jesus. They were not perfect. They had done some pretty bad things. That's why they were there on the cross. But one of those guys, as he was on the cross next to Jesus, he turned and said, "Jesus, I know you don't deserve to be here. I do. I've done some pretty terrible things in my life, but Jesus, if there's some way, could you please remember me?" Now, I have to tell you, if I was Jesus, and that guy who had done all those things wrong turned and said, "Will you please remember me?" I might have just looked at that person and said, "You know what? I just don't think that I can forgive you." See, look at all the bad things you've done. I mean, you're right. I've done nothing wrong. Maybe if there was some way that you could get off this cross and go apologize to some of the people that you weren't so kind to. Maybe if you could just go do some good things to make up for all those bad things you've done, then maybe I would forgive you. You see, sometimes that's how we think about forgiveness because it's difficult for us to forgive. But the amazing thing is that's not at all what Jesus said. When that guy was there on the cross, he turned and said, "Jesus, will you please remember me?" And Jesus said, "I tell you the truth, today you will be with me in paradise." Because he was simply willing to turn to Jesus that day, his sins were forgiven. And when he died, he went to spend eternity with Jesus in heaven. Now, some people think, well, maybe I'll be like that guy. I'll do whatever it is that I want to do, even if I know I shouldn't. Because then, right before I could die, I can just turn and say, "Jesus, now I'm ready. Please forgive me too." That's what some people think. But that's not how we're supposed to live. In fact, we're reminded of this by the fact that the day Jesus died on the cross, there was another thief. Now again, this guy wasn't like Jesus. He had done some things wrong. That's why he was there on the cross. But if you think about it, he must have known his life was almost over. He was hanging on a cross, and he was so close to Jesus. All he had to do was exactly what that first guy did, and just turn and say, "Jesus, me too, please remember me." But the truth is, even though he knew his life was almost over, and even though he was so close to Jesus, that day that guy did not turn to Jesus. When his life came to an end, he did not go to spend eternity with Jesus in heaven. See, the thing is that none of us are perfect. We're more like those two thieves. We've all said things we shouldn't say. We've all done things we shouldn't do. We have all sinned. But we all have a choice. We can choose to be like that first person and accept what Jesus did. Or we can choose to be like the second and ignore what Jesus did. That is a choice that each and every one of us have to make.